Everybody. My name is Jackie Mancuso, and today I have Gino with me. Gino is a teacher at the School of Metaphysics in the Chicagoland area, and my friend, Vicky, you guys know Vicky, my friend met Gino because she was taking classes at the School of Metaphysics. Vicky ended up inviting Gino to an ecstatic dance with us. So he and I have met each other in that realm. We met each other actually at the Theosophical Society when I was doing a vendor show last year. And Gino himself has a podcast called Above Spirituality, where he brings on guests live in person to interview them. Gino has invited me on the podcast. I've been a little bit, I don't want to go to Chicago, but we'll see what comes in the future. But today I want to interview Gino about what he does, how he teaches metaphysics, how he teaches meditation, what brought him there, and where he's going in the future. So, Gino, if you'd like to introduce yourself and just let my audience know who you are, that'd be great.
Yeah, tight. So I like to think I'm a spiritual citizen of Chicago, which is also how I love introducing people on the podcast. And maybe one day Jackie will, just get in a car and come hang out with us. But we'll see. We'll see. Maybe one day. So primarily I'm involved with the School of Metaphysics, which is really just a mystery school in the traditional sense. We teach the structure of the mind, applied spirituality, which is our main focus. And we focus on self-development through and transformation through a lot of spiritual skills. Chief among them are concentration, success consciousness, healing, dream interpretation is a huge focus of ours. We study scriptures, and of course, we teach meditation. We teach a lot of ways to transform and heighten your mind through various spiritual practices, and we always call them exercises that are largely rooted in yoga. A lot of them have relation to, I believe, Kriya Yoga. And that's like our big thing. We teach a whole bunch of different classes. It's all volunteer based. So I'm located in the Palatine branch, which I also volunteer direct with my friend Mike. I also have been doing Above Spirituality. We just filmed episode 19 like a week ago. About to film again on Sunday, episodes 2021. And the whole purpose of that is, above spirituality. Spirituality at one level is just a concept. It's stuff like yoga or religion or just beliefs. So we figured that what was above that was what people are actually doing. So we like to bring on people who are spiritual practitioners, my friends, a lot of people in the ecstatic dance community, and we just talk about specific topics. We've covered everything from Christianity and mysticism to traditional religion and magic, art, modeling, um, things like atheist or what you'd call natural philosophy versus spiritual philosophy, Sufism, and check out the channel if you want to know more.
That's awesome. How long ago did you start Above Spirituality to get to these 19 episodes?
Yeah, it was sometime like early last year. I forget exactly where. And big shout out to Nils Clausen and Alexander Whitehurst. They are the owners of Above Language, which is you guess you could call it the media company that owns Above Spirituality. They just invited me, and I said I want to do this as long as I don't have to do anything on the back end. And they're like, perfect. And so now we've really hit a stride of trying to do like 2 sessions every month of 2 interviews each.
What have been some of your favorite insights that have come from that podcast so far? Because I'm sure you've interviewed a lot of eccentric people.
Yeah. I talked about this recently in an episode that I shared, I filmed. And the craziest thing really is just like, this is something just personal to me. When I almost without fail, every episode, I'm listening to my guest, I'm sharing my ideas with the guest, and they'll say something, and I just like hear God in it. Like I have the sense, I just feel personally like I have the sense that like this is like, the divine helping me with something. Things that were extremely helpful were, I remember well, because I also do a lot of writing, or I hope to do more writing. And I remember I was talking to an artist, my friend Pat Kinnear, about how to get into the flow state. And he said, it's all about, you have to connect to the energy that you're in. If you're kind of in a lower state, don't try to fight that and go through, like, just go through it. But like, channel it. Or when I spoke to my good friend Heidi Shaleski, who's a local Chicago artist and Reiki practitioner, uh, and she was even interviewing me, and we were talking about creativity and spirituality, and she was talking about how it's necessary when you're focusing on a creative endeavor to disconnect from like other things going on in your life, which was like obvious, but it just really helped to hear it. So off the bat, those are the things that I think were extremely impactful to me. That,
That's
oh, and one
awesome.
other thing, my good friend Luke Lindstrom, who's a Chicago yoga teacher, we were talking about love and the shadow work, and I was going through the shadow bad at the time. And he said something along the lines of, the more we welcome our pain, the less it has to teach us. And that has been astoundingly transformational for me.
Is there anything that you've done with that advice that has helped you overcome the pain, overcome the shadow, accept and love the shadow?
Oh yeah. That's extremely relevant to like what spiritually I'm working on right now. There was something that I wouldn't go into the details of it, but it was very upsetting. It had to deal with rejection and fear and anger. And when I opened that avenue, I was trying to connect with the person. Um, I was aware that this was a distinct possibility of something that would come up because the last time I had interacted with them, you know, I had a month long, very painful, emotional and spiritual reaction. And I was like looking at it and I was like, well, if I try this again, I know that this, and this is going to happen to me. Like I'm going to get these symptoms. And I figure, okay, I know what to do. So that is what happened. And I, I tried to not resist it. And as you incorporate love into that, you start to feel this urge to just be with, this person who's suffering, to not try to change it, to welcome it, to have compassion for yourself and love. And, I really couldn't even tell you what that specifically looks like because that's going to be personal to you. And I had this feeling as I've been learning to not resist things as much that, when you surrender something, you should have this sharp, awful experience because you didn't resist it and you should go through it quickly and then it poofs goes away. But the reality of welcoming it is that sometimes you're going to have a long, drawn out, painful experience. It might last hours. But as I welcomed that and I stuck with it, the most amazing things happened in my mind. I had this sort of like feeling of an aspect of myself that was like a spiritual watcher that could just watch what was happening to Gino, stay with him, give him, like loving thoughts and energies that weren't just like platitudes. And, still kind of going through it because this was very recent, but like, oh my God, like when I tell you, can I swear or
Yeah,
prefer not?
absolutely.
When I tell you this shit fucked me up for a month last time, I had a couple bad days. And for the most part, I processed it. And when you can go through deep, painful, emotional reactions, like at a spiritual or just a normal life level, when you come through it and you see what you're capable of, you just have this feeling of like, oh my God, I survived it. And this pride for being with yourself. And it's such an important spiritual tool because, it's not a question of if you're going to get hit with something from within, it's just when and how many times.
Exactly. I'm wondering if you can correlate how your long-term practice with meditation has helped you with this. Because I know that the majority of my YouTube following are meditators. They know about spirituality, spiritual concepts, but there's random people hopping in this live right now, and I don't know where they're at. So I kind of maybe want to use this as like a PSA to show people
Yeah.
that meditation has many benefits that can include taking you through some of your hardest times with ease.
So a good friend of mine, who would be a great guest on the show, David Prorock, who, among many other things, does some meditation coaching. And he was at a group meditation I led about a month or two ago, and he was sharing some advice with a newbie. And one thing that he said is, you know, calmness is not a guarantee during meditation. If you're new to meditation, don't expect it to be extremely peaceful off the bat. Don't beat yourself up if it's a uncomfortable or even a miserable experience. But what is often a reward of a meditative practice is calmness. And so as you practice this, because when I practice meditation, when I teach it over the School of Metaphysics, I always teach people you're just feeling and allowing whatever comes up. The only thing you're not doing is thinking actively. You're not engaging with thoughts, but you're just feeling things and you're opening yourself up to those things. And in meditation, you do that and you learn to watch the things neutrally. And what happens as you learn to do that is your soul learns more and more how to process things, how to just let them pass through you and not destroy you. And another big part of it is, the way I practice meditation, and I'm very involved in ecstatic dance, is you develop a very somatic connection to the body. In my meditation practice, a lot of people think you're trying to transcend the body, which, yeah, you are. But I'm sure many people may have heard of Eckhart Tolle's Power of Now. And one of the things he said is that there is a portal to your inner self, your higher consciousness, which is attention on the sensations in the body. And as you do that in both meditation and then outside of it, when you're processing these reactions, you need to develop the skill to deeply feel things with intensity and simultaneously not try to change them. And meditation cultivates this in a extremely direct way. And then, of course, you're not going to spend all day meditating, so you learn how to do that in the daily life.
I think there's a plague of mentalism in our society these days. And I can speak from personal experience. I didn't learn how to name my emotions until I was in my mid-20s, probably late 20s is when a therapist asked me, "And how did that make you feel?" And I said, "It was fine." And she said, "No, like what feeling did you feel?" And that was brand new to me. And the story that you just shared, the whole concept that you just shared, reminded me of a time recently that I did a practice called conscious connected breathwork. I did it first at a retreat where it was facilitated by a breathwork practitioner. And essentially, the practice is taking deep breaths in and out your mouth for an hour. It's nothing complicated, nothing crazy. But with the whole setup that she was on the mic guiding us through. She had this extensive playlist that was invoking feelings. And just with the breath, I had releases that I had never had before, like deep emotional releases. And it felt great to be with my emotions. And then a few weeks later, I wanted to have the experience again in my home because Insight Timer is a free meditation app. And I found some conscious connected breathwork meditation tracks on Insight Timer. So I set myself up in my home to do the same thing. And I found myself getting frustrated that it wasn't happening as easily as it did when I was in person. And then I caught myself. I was thinking about what I wanted, and instead, I just decided to express my frustration. That triggered my dog to react in a way. And then I realized, like, oh my God, he just loves me so much. And then that's when all the emotions came. So it was so interesting to notice that when you actually feel the fucking emotion, it unlocks things for you. It shows you. We can think about emotions and talk about emotions all day, but it's the power of actually feeling it and letting yourself experience it that brings magic abound. What do you
Yeah.
have to say about that?
It's really cool that you brought that up, because another thing that we're really involved with the School of Metaphysics is Akashic record readings. We pioneered our own kind of innovation on Edgar Casey's fundamental techniques, and it's something I swear by. And I had recently, I've had many through some friends of mine readings. And if anyone's interested in learning more about that or even acquiring one, just reach out to me through the Facebook or any of my DMs and stuff. And that's not a paid advertisement. Uh, I had talked about like wanting to learn how to have emotional release, because that was just something I was not able to figure out very extremely well on my own. And there's a lot of ideas, and yeah, you could call it mentalism about, and especially in spiritual work or even in modern like counseling, of like understanding where these trigger points are, like what thoughts are causing this, what attitudes. And obviously that's an important part of our journey. Yet when I asked about this, they told me don't even go into the thoughts, because there's a level where if you keep trying to go into the thoughts and understand and analyze like why these things are coming up, you just get in the cycle of thoughts. And you know what the thoughts produce? More feelings.
Thoughts. Oh, yeah.
And so it really recommended just feeling these emotions without judgment, observing them. And it's a skill. And as you develop this skill, and really as you, some levels, increase your tolerance for, you could say, pain, or you just become more really truly spiritually sensitive, it is this most amazing thing that things that have bothered you for years that you and the therapist cannot figure out become released because at some level they're stuck in your etheric body and in your physical nervous system.
Very interesting. What was it that got you to meditate for the first time? Can you remember when you entered
Yeah,
this whole? Yeah, tell us
yeah.
about it.
It was spirit science.
Okay.
Yeah, it's spirit science in Jordan. Much love to that man because I was 19 years old and he did that whole series on, it was like an alternate history of Earth that it's like, it was basically ancient aliens, but instead of ancient aliens, it was ancient angels.
Okay.
And it's a wild video. Like it's a wild thing. He compiled all his shorts into like essentially a movie. And I had a very good friend, Josh, who, we were just chilling. He wanted to show me it. We watched the whole thing in like a sitting room at my parents' house. And I just had this small thought, like, okay, yeah, I want to try meditation. And it was just from there.
Do you remember what your first experience was like?
Yeah, I did not seek guidance on how to meditate, which I do not recommend. I only recommend that if you feel like you are truly trying to like, I don't know, like teach it at some point and be like a master. And really, that's all. You can only even start that if you haven't already, because then you really just have to try to figure shit out with, only snippets of advice and beliefs about it. It's very painful. It's very nerve wracking. And the first couple experiences were really that, like having no idea what to do with the mind, no idea what to do at all. I highly recommend finding a teacher, a class, a group. Um, and yeah, I was doing that on and off until one day a series of synchronicities uh, and random practices I just intuited led to Kundalini Shakti. And when I experienced that, it was like, okay, you don't have to convince me anymore.
What was that like?
Imagine more energy than you ever thought your body could feel. It's like the practice that I had done, which I had discovered in a book called The Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life, which can be pretty ungrounded at times. So that's just like a little word of warning.
Can I just
Uh,
tell you how many times in the last 2 weeks that book has come up? And now from you, I must read it.
yeah, I'm going to warn you straight up. Like the first half of the first volume is essentially a bunch of conspiracy theories that were wrong. Like at one point, I think they said that like Aborigines had one less chromosome than the rest of human beings, and that's obviously false. I don't know if there's something different on the astro level, but I doubt it. Nor is it relevant. But just be that in mind. The stuff about sacred geometry is cool. The practices are where, especially getting into the Merkaba stuff, that's really where it's at, and that's where you hear a lot of good reviews.
Cool.
But yeah, it was like it's this practice of like bringing energy up and down through the chakras. And I also want to just be very honest for people who are not involved in Kundalini or energy work, you're really not recommended to do it alone. Like you can hurt yourself. Like you should know that. I was blessed that it was a spontaneous thing. I didn't try to force it. And I really feel like my guides were there allowing it and guiding it. And I even tried to replicate it. It did not work. I had a dream, and the whole dream was just a warning, like, don't do that. So just bear that in mind.
Cool.
But after the feeling of the energy was a feeling of bliss and ecstasy, like really just incredible to behold. Like, I'd imagine it's what drugs must feel like. And then it was a very odd but specific sensation of like a piston going up and down my central energetic column. And I experienced that for about 15 minutes and I was like, okay, that's probably enough. And naively thought, oh, I can just get back here whenever I want. But it was probably for the best that I did stop it, because it's like it's to say it's a lot is an understatement. You know.
I interviewed a guy a couple years ago. I had a different podcast, and I interviewed this man named Bob, who was all about breath work. And he would describe it as almost like a full body orgasm. Would you say it's similar?
Yeah, it didn't. It this particular experience did not have the orgasmic kind of like the feeling of like a climax. It was just ecstasy and bliss. And it was the better word was euphoria. It was the euphoria of experiencing it. Like, and you experience the body in a way that you didn't even think that was an option. Like, so yeah, but I could see the relation to like the orgasmic experience.
Sure. I don't think I've had yet a massive breathwork transformational body energy yet. So I think that's why I'm curious to see how other people would define it. But how long ago was that experience for you?
About 10 years ago. I think I was about 20 when it happened.
So that was
Um,
right in the beginning of your journey. Holy shit.
oh yeah, yeah. It was like it was insane. Uh, because I feel like it was a blessing and a gift because it cemented my desire to keep staying in this, even
Hmm.
though those experiences have been far and few in between after that. I hate to say it is by practicing stuff like meditation or any spiritual pathway, you increase the likelihood that things like this might happen. There are practices that can force them. And I want to go on the record and say that is very dangerous. Don't do that. You need a lot of Kriya to develop the nervous system to even hold this. Like in fact, I had a good friend who was a Sufi, and you would have thought he had like autism or Tourette's. And I asked him about it once because he would literally do stuff like this. And he's like, "Oh, I had an experience with God and it kind of fried me." So you really want that to be either with a guru, a teacher, or just spontaneous. But some people never have these experiences, but it can change your life. So obviously attachment is not a good idea in spirituality at all. So you don't want to be attached.
How did you get started in the School of Metaphysics then? Because that seems like that was all right around the same time.
It was so funny, Jackie. I was drunk. And I really gave up substance for a huge portion of my life because it's a big part of the School of Metaphysics. But I was 21. I was at the University of Illinois. I was drunk. I was hanging out with this girl who I had a crush on. We had literally just shotgunned Four Locos. And then we were going to go on the quad, was a free B.O.B. concert. And I'm walking my happy ass down to the concert. And there was this dude, this young guy with like long curly hair, my dear friend Scott Hilburn. He's just like, "Hey, do you want a free dream journal?" And my happy ass was like, "Hell yeah, I want a free dream journal." And I saw he gave me and it said School of Metaphysics. And that same girl, we would like go on dates to the Humane Society to hang out with the cats. And we would pass the Urbana School of Metaphysics. And I was like, "Oh, it's in the sign, but like, what the hell is a metaphysics?" And when he described like what they did and what they were about, it was so weird because I remember being like 12, angsty in my room, and like just thinking like I should meditate or I should concentrate on something. Like I should close my eyes until I could see something. I should set goals. And that was literally the coursework. And so it was just this divine thing. And I've been a member of the program ever since.
And how did you become a teacher there? What did that process look like?
So we offer like two main offerings, which is short courses. Like right now, I'm mostly focusing on teaching a meditation class, and if anyone's in the Chicago Northwest suburbs area, come through. I really love the class. We're going to talk about prayer this week, um, and it's Tuesday nights, 7 to 8:30. But anyway, so so then we also offer what's called the applied metaphysics class, which is a really robust, somewhat rigorous program that covers essentially every aspect of spiritual basics except maybe like energy healing, and also includes some scripture study and dream interpretation. And so I was involved with that. And it's really for people who are just like looking to have like a community and there's a level of commitment to it. So it's for people who are like ready or who are like brand new and just want to dive into something. You stay as long as you like. Um, and I was taking the class for a long time, and I just had this desire to become a teacher. I mean, I had in my early 20s, I had the desire to become a professor one day. And I was almost through with the first cycle. There's 4 cycles of study. And I just expressed to my friend, my good friend Zach Bush, who was the director at the time, I wanted to start teaching it. And he was like, hell yeah, dude, we need teachers. It's all volunteers. So, we can really only be as big as however many volunteers there are. And I've been doing that ever since.
That's amazing. In the questionnaire, so for those watching, every time I have someone live on these, I send them a quick Google form just to explain who they are, what they do, and why they want to talk to me. And in Gino's questionnaire, you were talking so much about how like teaching and sharing is just part of who you are. And the more that we've gotten to talk over this live so far, I know that you're an Aquarius. You keep
Yeah.
talking about all your friends, you keep name dropping, like just to show support. You are such this like community man, this community teacher. So I think this role fits you perfectly.
Thanks. I'm also Italian, so like having a guy for everything and being well connected is just like built into me. But yeah, teaching for anyone in the audience who is a spiritual practitioner, uh, with or without a lot of experience in any modality, like if you ever have the desire to like share and to take the role of a spiritual teacher, one, to preface it first, like really you got to make sure your ego doesn't get into like the role of it. Like I literally would only say I'm a spiritual teacher because I literally teach a class on spirituality, but like, I'm not like a guru or a saint or nothing. But the chance to like facilitate a group and to observe people who, if you're honest, you might say, oh, maybe I'm a little farther along in the journey than this person. And if you're really honest, you'd be like, oh no, this person is clearly more developed in certain areas than me. But my role is I'm just observing you. I'm guiding you through a coursework that I know well, and I'm sharing what I know. It's an amazing experience. And it's super amazing because, if you study like something like the Gospels, Jesus says, there's this famous story where Jesus sends all the apostles, his 12 most close followers, and he sends them off, and he says, don't take any food, don't take any money, don't even take another shirt. He says, and go and preach. And anyone who will listen to you, talk to them. If they don't want to listen to you, don't even shake the dirt off your feet. And he said, what's going to happen is you are going to get accused of things. You're going to get taken before the judges, and you're not going to know what to say. But he said, don't worry. It's in that moment that what he called the Holy Spirit will speak through you. And something that like every SOM teacher, school metaphysics teacher has always agreed is that when you're in front of that group and they ask you a question, things just come out of you that you had no business knowing, or you just figure something out because the person in front of you needs it. And it's a truly glorious experience. I recommend it highly. Just be my advice is, find an accredited program. You're much better doing that than trying to like start your own thing, because then you run into some trouble of your ego. And how well do you know that the things you want to teach are what should be taught? So go to a nice program, something that you believe in highly, and and try to teach if you want.
I know you wanted to tell us your story about what's coming up with the University of Virginia. Would this be a good time to segue into that?
Yeah, I've had a long time dream of being like a professor of comparative religion, but really of like comparative spirituality. And as I've been applying to many different schools around the nation, they have you write these like statements of purpose. And you have to kind of figure out, you have to sell yourself and you say, this is what I want to study. And one of the things I landed on was that I really wanted to study the spiritual weirdos like us. On a census you would mark.
Excuse me?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, Jackie, don't have some self-awareness, please. Uh, but anyway, yeah, I wanted to study, among other things, the group of people that would identify as like spiritual but not religious. And there just so happened that there was a really incredible program at the University of Virginia. They have these 2 incredible centers: the Center for Contemplative Sciences, which I'm meeting with one of the directors of that shortly after this, where they study contemplative practices and how it can benefit people. But even cooler than that, there's a place called the Division of Perceptual Studies, which, if I remember correctly, I think was in What the Bleep Do We Know? And if it wasn't, it's in a bunch of documentaries. This is the scientific laboratory that studies in their medicine school, really, stuff like people who report having past lives, altered states of consciousness, the relation of brain to consciousness, the possibility of consciousness persisting the death of the body, out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences. And I'm hoping to work with them. But if anyone here has ever applied to master studies, really you go where God takes you. You go where you get in, and you go where either you can afford or where you're willing to just, say, to put yourself in God's hands, like, yeah, it might be broke as a joke, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I got no's from Rice University, University of Chicago, Harvard, which I wasn't too surprised. That was a long shot. And I had, after one of these meditation classes, I went out with a friend, and I met this guy randomly. And he heard we were talking about the meditation school, and he was like, I'm going to connect you with this one young lady who is a senior at Northwestern, and she's applying to the same programs. We were talking on and off about the programs we were applying to, and I remember I got off work, I was relaxing, and I randomly got a text from her, and it just said, "Good luck with UVA." And Jackie, literally 3 minutes later, I got the email saying I was accepted.
Wow.
Yeah, it was. I'm taking it as a sign, and I really hope that sign also is connecting to the prosperity of the universe, because it's expensive. But you know, first, one of the great teachings of Jesus: seek ye first the kingdom of heaven; all else is cared for.
I love when things like that happen, when you are on the right track and you can feel you're on the right track, but we have that ego human doubt. Ooh, I don't know. Am I going to get another no? I got a no from all these places. And then you randomly meet that person, you randomly get that text, and poof, magic.
Yeah, Carl Jung wrote a lot about that in his last book, Synchronicity. He said that the things that, what is it? He said that the universe was considered a Newtonian like paradigm, and the universe runs on space, time, and causality. And what he was saying is no, there's an axis. The universe runs on space and time, causality, which is like A to B to C, and also just meaning. Things that have meaning to human beings, he believed, and he wrote about it, actually is a causal factor of the universe, which any spiritual person would just say, oh, karma, or, divine will.
Can you give an example of what you mean by things that have meaning?
Yeah. In fact, I'll share briefly his story that he used to illustrate this. So obviously, Carl Jung was a doctor. He practiced psychiatry and psychoanalysis. And he had this patient, he tells the story in the book. He has this patient where she's really bright and, intelligent, and a lot of psychoanalytics can be kind of symbolic and it's not always obvious. And she wasn't making a lot of progress in the therapy because she's like, look, this all sounds really good. I want to believe it, but my logical mind, it just doesn't. So one day, they were having a therapy session, and it's, she's laying in the recliner and he's behind her, and she's talking about this dream. And in the dream, someone had handed her a golden scarab beetle. And Carl tells the story that as she's telling him that, he hears a knocking on the window behind him, which is weird because he's like a couple stories up. And he looks behind him, and there's a beetle that's like trying to get into the room. And he opens the window, and the beetle flies almost directly into his hand. And obviously, he's German, so it's not a scarab, but it was like the closest thing. And he reaches over the couch and he said, "Here is your scarab beetle." And obviously, the scarab represents rebirth. And like, boom, suddenly the therapy just started working. It broke her barrier. And that's like the famous story explaining it.
Meaning. I got it. Yeah, something has to correlate in order to help your logical brain click. Am I on the right track?
Yeah, yeah. It's the classic, you think about someone and then they call you, or you're in the right time with the right place, the right people type thing. It's the, it's, or you're really working on something and then you just see something outside and it just like clicks.
Mm-hmm. I was doing some journaling yesterday, and I'm kind of curious, just because of your University of Virginia story and how things kind of clicked into place. I'm curious about your take on this. So, a little bit of background. Since about September-ish of last year, I have been balls to the wall. Jackie wants a fucking RV. Jackie wants to
Yeah,
get an
yeah.
RV,
I
travel
recall.
the country. And so yesterday, my journaling was about like how to create more abundance, and it was just three simple questions asking about what are some of the blessings that you've obtained recently, and like what shifts in your life helped you obtain those things. But what I took away from the journaling is that the things in my life right now that I'm most abundantly grateful for, I never asked for. they're all things that just came to me because I was gunning for this RV, right? So currently I'm in 80-degree Florida. I live in Illinois, by the way, guys, because my friend on Facebook posted that he needed a dog sitter. Or he didn't even post that. He complained about how expensive dog sitters were. I saw the opportunity to travel and I was like, hey, cover my flight and I'll be there, you know? So, like, that's one of the things I was writing about. I obtained another retreat that I'm going on next month that is way more affordable than I thought it would be. None of this is the RV that I've been, pinholing my attention into, but all the things that I'm most grateful for, I never even asked for. What do you have to say about that?
So it's really interesting because I one of my last guest on the show, episode 18, a great young lady named Gigi. I shouldn't say young; she's a little older than me, but she's like a mindfulness, or not a mind. She's a mentality coach. She's kind of like a life coach, and we were talking about manifestation and about the role love, self love, plays in manifestation. And a
Mm.
big part of it is in her belief, and you can see this in plenty of different literature about the topic, or content creators, is that you have to, as you feel deserving of things and like you get involved with your life and things that give you purpose, that's like when you start manifesting. And so her story was how she was really sick and tired of the dating scene. She kind of gave up on it. She's like, I just wrote a list of like everything I wanted in a guy, including like physical characteristics. And I put the list in a drawer and I just worked on myself and what made me happy for months. And then finally she had this random Hinge date and he was like the answer to her prayer, and they've been happily together ever since. I get the sense that when the soul within feels like you are connected with its plan for your life, which is really your plan for your life, when you are engaged with feeling a sense of purpose and connected to that, you begin to activate the universal laws, including the law of prosperity and abundance. And you know, it's that classic like what is it, like Joseph Campbell line, follow your bliss. And I think too, it's also kind of like, like Jesus said, like follow, like the kingdom of heaven, and all else will be taken care of, because the kingdom of heaven is just higher consciousness, and whatever gives your
Mhm.
life meaning is a huge part of your own raising in consciousness, and that allows the universe to put you in the field. Would be my guess.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is that it's not about, there might be a part of me right now that thinks that this RV is going to complete my life. It's going to give me what I want. So instead of waiting for me to be whole and complete with the thing that I desire, I've been focusing on myself. I've been taking opportunities that bring me bliss, and my life is moving forward the way that I desire it to. That's kind of what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, yeah. Your soul came here for a reason, and part of that was to live just a normal human life. And it has, we have these urges that come from within. And one something I didn't know is that these urges can come from your soul wanting specific experiences. And some
Hmm.
of those experiences might be seemingly very mundane. You might make the mistake of thinking it's not spiritual or important to my soul growth to like want an RV. But if you're someone who believes in reincarnation, just recall that the normal mode of human soul growth, the thing that we've all done way more times than we've ever been monks or spiritual teachers or anything important like that, is just normal human life. That's how we grow, and God does whatever God does with enjoying it, or all that kind of stuff.
Very, very interesting. Have you had any recent spiritual insights? Like, have you been working through any kind of concepts lately that you want to discuss?
Yeah. A big one is projection. That is
Ooh.
like, projecting like the source of your feelings on something out into the world.
Hmm.
And the more you're honest, at least I would say for me, the more I was honest with myself, and the more I looked at my mind and my thoughts and my feelings, you start to realize that projection is one of the main forces of, you could just say, the human psyche. You know,
Sure.
projection onto the government is bad and I'm upset about this, or I'm poor because there's billionaires who have all this money that they don't share, or in a case with me, there's trying to be in the dating scene. It's like, oh, this person rejected me or wasn't giving the time of day, and you watch as the feelings come up, the feelings they were talking about earlier, surrendering, and you watch as your thoughts try to describe them, and they say this is why you feel that way. But it's weird because it's good to just hear this, but you have to have the direct experience of, if you are really honest with yourself, that is all just seeking outside of yourself. It is all dishonest to what is actually happening, because what's actually happening is a feeling is arising in you because you have it. You, if you are indulging in thoughts of like fear about the government or the current political situation, if you're really honest, the truth is you're just full of fear. And you can tell that it's true because if you let go of the thoughts about the specific thing and you stop believing them, but you stick with the feeling, if you just keep engaging with your life, something else will come up that'll make you'll start thinking about that. And that's why you're afraid.
Yes.
And the thoughts will just jump right onto the next thing. And you have to really, it's good to hear it, but you have to keep looking for it until you finally have a direct experience where you realize, yeah, holy shit, this is just something outside of myself.
I think that's really interesting that you brought up projection, because I was listening to another teacher before we got on, and she was talking about projection in the way that the majority of the spiritual community, in my opinion, talks about projection as something that we need to watch, right? Something like, if you project your anger onto the government, it's their fault. It's something to watch. And I took myself on this little thought of, I'm a coach, and so I coach people, and there are times that, of course, as much as I try not to, I do project myself on them, but it's a way of finding commonality. Because I
Yeah.
do understand that projection is like, I'm seeing myself in you. So I'm going to talk to you the way that I think I would want to be talked to. And it's their choice if they want to continue to work with me or not, So if it's working for them, they'll continue, but if not, they won't. But this came from the thought of how we're all one. Everything is connected. And I've done a lot of sitting with this concept that, like, you are just a fragment of me, and I am a fragment of you, and we're all fragments of the one. The words aren't coming to me right now, but I hope you're understanding what I'm saying.
Totally.
And when it was actually when I first started learning meditation, where you think, or what is the meta? Sending love to everybody, right? Like sending love all around.
Oh,
And
like
that was when,
METTA, like that, like a Buddhist kind of thing.
yes,
Yeah. Okay.
the concept is to, like, you send love to yourself, you send love to the people that you love, and then you send love to people that you hate. You send love to people that bring you a lot of anger or whatever in your life. And at that time, I was experiencing a lot of government hate, and having to sit down and send love to these people who I believe to be doing heinous acts to children. It was such a practice of, like, how can I get myself to actually love these people, these terrible people? But it comes back to that concept of, everybody is me. You are this version of me. Like, it's an internal family system, but outside in the world. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. And it should also, it's good to say, because a lot of people, and this is something I fell into, is a lot of like spiritual people who get into certain forms of spirituality, they recognize things like that. They try to stop projecting on the world. They take this neutral stance about the world, which is a valid spiritual approach, and nothing else will be good for your mental health. But the mistake a lot of people think is that just because I'm releasing and owning, where I'm projecting and where things lie with me, does not mean you cannot still recognize injustice in the world and work, even like aggressively so, to right it. I mean, that itself may have been why you came here spiritually. Uh, you can look in all the books. A lot of the great spiritual teachers were reformers and people who wanted to produce change and benefit the world. I mean, you think of like Mother Teresa. Like, yeah, she was very spiritual about it, but like, yeah, she was here to help the poor and to make them Christians. But that's neither here nor there.
Nothing is all good or all bad, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you are free to, even if you accept that nothing is good or bad, you are free to still say, "Hey, my soul feels for that cause. I'm going to work at it. I'm going to try to right, injustices in politics, or income inequality, or you know, uh, race relations, whatever you want to call it. You can still do that. That can be spiritual, and you can still hold neutrality. You might find that you're even better suited to do it when your mind doesn't run by anger or fear.
Very true. Yeah. Looking at your triggers, why is it that you are working in this direction? Is it because you're trying to avenge your own anger, right? Or is it because it's true love and compassion for everybody?
Yeah, and the truth is that people shouldn't beat themselves up if they find they are projecting a lot, and say that's the only reason I'm interested in that. The nature of the mind, this is something we kind of talk about in the School of Metaphysics, is it's very receptive. It's like film, or it's almost like garden soil. And anyone who's gardened knows a weed will grow very happily right next to your tomato plant. You may simultaneously have an urge to help people because you feel genuine love for them, and because there's a limitation within yourself that you're projecting.
Hmm.
And it's all about just pulling out the weeds and nurturing the plants, the crops.
Both and again, nothing is good or bad. You are doing it. It's being motivated and fueled by two different parts of yourself, and that's good. What is your focus? Are you focusing on the altruistic version of it? That I think you're going to learn something, right?
I mean, yeah, you got to accept that you're a human being, and your brain is like half angel, half hungry, horny, like murderous dinosaur. And yeah, you have a human unconscious mind. Very dramatic thoughts are going to occur to you. And if you're really honest, very dramatic, violent, or even perverse thoughts there's a part of you that's going to enjoy that, because, you know, I remember I was listening, I was just recently watching a YouTuber, and he was like a dog trainer. And he's like, I think this has to be said about dogs. Obviously, I love dogs. They're very beautiful creatures. But the truth about some dogs is that if you watch them attack and maul someone, they're having a great time. Like, they're wagging their tail. This is something they enjoy. You have that within you too. And so you're trying to transcend that, accept it, and just not act on it as best as you can. Like,
Or
that's,
find healthy ways to express that.
yeah, yeah,
Like they have rage rooms.
yeah, yeah.
You can go get that part out of you. Something that I've been working on as well lately is the idea, the concept of fuck shame. I've done this. I am this person. I have this desire. So what? Like, there's so many people. I would say 100% of people walk around with these dirty little secrets. We all walk around with things that we don't want other people to know. So why should I feel bad about myself for holding my secret when I know that everyone, even like the best people in the world, the most philanthropic people, they have some dirty shit. You can't. It's not that it makes you a bad human if you have these strange desires. You can still act well in the world. You can still put out love. Just fuck shame. Be yourself. Fuck around and find out. That's where I'm at in my life right now.
Yeah, that reminds me so much of one of my favorite spiritual teachers. If anyone here ever watches the podcast, you're gonna hear him name dropped literally once an episode, is David Hawkins. And he shared two things that I think was interesting. One, he was a psychiatrist, a counselor, and he's a doctor. And he talks about how, here's the thing is, you have the human unconscious mind, which thinks largely in symbols that can be very drastic, violent, perverse. And the trouble is that your mind is just thinking symbolically, but you can't help but think about it literally. You think that's literally something. We always made the joke, someone cuts you off, and like you have the desire to kill them, which like you do, but like obviously, like you, Jackie, you don't want to kill the guy who cut you off because he inconvenienced you. And the other thing he talked about, let me see if I can regather my thought, is that stuff like shame, stuff like a lot of negativities, the classic like victim, overly righteous, like duality, is something that your ego gets off on. He talked about this at length. There is a secret pleasure you get to, oh, poor me, oh, poor me, you kind of love it. Or the secret pleasure of like, I can't believe, like a feeling high and mighty. And these are spiritual errors that happen to all spiritual aspirants. And, obviously, if you're trying to grow spiritually, if one thing you're trying to do is master the ego or transcend the ego, or at the very least, like lessen its hold on you. And part of that is realizing that you're getting off on it. And that's another thing. It's a good thing to hear, but you have to kind of practice with it until you see the truth of what the teacher was trying to get you to see. And that takes a little while.
It does. It's hard. It's hard to own your shit, especially because of, so many of us everyone grew up with people who told us that what we were doing is wrong. Whatever it is
Yeah.
that we're doing is wrong. And that's where that sitting with your shadow, feeling the feelings, like you can transcend this stuff. You can make it through this stuff. And I think it's great that you and I were both early 30s, right? I think it's so amazing that we are this aware at this age, because like how much more are we going to be able to help the rest of the universe transcend their own shame, their own negative emotions? I think it's just, I'm so excited to see what our generation is going to bring to the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Where it's open to so many new things like acceptance, somatic practices as a means to therapy. I mean, it's even like the classic, like, you see the meme of like millennial fathers spend significantly more time with their children and sharing the burden, which was traditionally, a gender role put on women, just to be with their children and to raise them. And, as compared to our forefathers. And that's just huge.
I want to mention also that there everything's a cycle. Everything's going to start, everything's going to end. So I was hearing some people in my life having negative comments about what you were just saying about the father playing a bigger role in the family. And what I want to communicate is that no matter what way our society is moving now, the wheel is going to turn. All of these new concepts now will one day sour, and then something else will come and replace it. So the more that I have accepted that fact, the easier it has been for me to just flow with change, flow with the changes. When the times change, when society changes, nothing is ever going to be perfect. Nothing's ever going to be completely terrible. It's happening. It's not going to be permanent.
I mean, yeah, and the other side of it too, I think, because that was the God that I heard in this, and I'm gonna have to think about that more later. Yeah, the other thing too is just also accepting yourself and humanity for where we're at. It
Mm-hmm.
was not all that long ago, and there's just still something that happens in the world where people would be stoned to death for cheating on their significant others. It was not all that long ago that slavery was not only a widespread practice, it was a fundamental part of a nation's economy. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there are still grotesque wars that are going on, and there is still so many things because we're new. You know, for anyone who's familiar with Hawkins, it was like only 2012 that the consciousness of mankind even breached into the very lowest aspects of the positive nature of consciousness. And I don't want to be a doomsayer, but I'm almost wouldn't be surprised if we had dipped back under that. Just given everything that's going on in the world. You know, Hawkins himself said 80% of the world, when he did his muscle testing, calibrates lower than your average dog in consciousness. Your average household cat has a higher state of consciousness than your average human being by a large margin. And that's just who we are and where we're at.
Can I politely disagree with you? So
Sure.
here's the thing with the consciousness of a dog and consciousness of a cat. Personally, I believe that they are ascended masters. They
Oh.
always have been higher than us. That's why they only have to be here for a decade, right? So
Yeah,
humans have
yeah.
always been under animals. Um, and
Uh-huh.
shoot, humans dipping back under. Okay, everything in hindsight is 2020. So what I see in the world a lot nowadays is people comparing this to 1940s Germany. We've come so far from then. Like, we've already seen it. Humanity as a whole has already watched that. We've already learned from that. We already know the warning signs for that. So is history going to repeat itself? Fuck no. But is this going to come into whatever the wheel is turning into, something different is going to happen. So are you being fueled by fear? Oh no, the same thing is going to happen again. It's fucking not. Okay, sorry, it's not. We've learned humanity does grow, humanity does progress. We don't stone people for cheating on their spouses anymore. But if you can get yourself to be driven by love, it's the same concept that you were talking about earlier, witnessing the injustice that you see, using your passion to go do something about it, not sitting there cowering, wondering, oh my gosh, is this going to get so bad like it was before? Because I really don't believe it is.
I
I
don't
think this is a
either.
great inspiration.
Yeah, I don't either. And, you know, it's if you're a truly spiritual person, and you believe that we are all one, if you really don't want things to happen like that again, and you got two options. One, go become a huge social activist, make that your career, and fight, 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 do your best.
Mhm.
And the truth is that you got your work cut out for you. You don't have as much money as Elon Musk. You don't have as much influence as the Democratic Party of America. You are just some person. But what you could also do is raise your level of consciousness through devotion to a spiritual practice, pathway, a group. It could even be a religion if you want. But if you do something to be more spiritual, to spread light in the world, as your level of consciousness rises, your consciousness is the consciousness of the ocean. And if the ocean rises, all the boats in the ocean rise with it. And to be fair, those not my words. I took that from someone else.
The same teacher I was listening to this morning said that like 5 times. As the tides rise, the boats rise. So you must rise yourself. And that's what it comes down to. So fuck this whole notion of being selfish. We have to love ourselves because healing from the inside out. There are people who are here to be the social justice people, and that's not me. I'm here to work on myself and inspire people to work on themselves because I've seen so much growth in turning my codependency onto myself. So that's the message that I'm here to share. Take care of yourself, raise your own consciousness, love yourself, spend time with yourself, because then you are just the light and it's effortless to make a positive impact on the world. You don't have to try so hard.
And it's a truth, and you could say it's a sad truth, but the reality is, sadly, you are not guaranteed that anyone will ever love you. You're likely your mother will. That's not even a guarantee. And of
Right.
course, your mom's probably going to pass before you. So no one can guarantee you that you will love that they will give you love, but you have the capacity to give yourself love, and that is a guarantee that you can do.
And you're completely in control of that.
Yeah.
This has been amazing. I didn't know where this was going to go, but I've really enjoyed this hour that we've had together. I
Same.
will definitely reconsider driving out to Chicago to spend a Sunday with you guys because I think that would be a wonderful
It's a
opportunity.
good time, Jackie. We do the two. We do the two. I mean, frankly, if there's even like a CBC event, I might even start scheduling them later in the day so I can go to CBC. You know, you don't know this. This woman is a phenomenal dancer, like spectacular dancer. It's almost a sin she doesn't come to altar more, just because I'd love to see her dance or have the chance to dance with her again. Um, but yeah, and then it's a good time, Jackie. We just hang out, and then sometimes afterwards we go out. We hang out. We go to
I
music and
know.
art events a lot of the time.
I'm in a healing phase, but I'm coming out of it. I'm coming around. We'll talk about
Well,
it.
remember, you only got until like early August, because then I'm gonna be headed to Charlottesville.
That's right. Okay. All
But
right.
I would love to come back on the Facebook live, or the YouTube live. No problem.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, as we wrap this up, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit because I do it to all my guests. If you could share one message with humanity right now, what would it be that you would want everybody to hear?
Unconditional love relies solely on your choice to choose love in your mind, regardless of what happens to you and regardless of what you think and feel about the situation. If you are attached to giving love because you feel it, you have limited your capacity to love tremendously because you don't always control how you feel. you have the most control over what you think and what you choose resolutely in the mind. And to me, this is the core of what it means to be loving.
That was like a fucking sermon. I love it. Thank you so
I
much,
wrote a book
Gino.
about that, so hopefully if it gets published, I'll share it with you.
That's amazing. I have all of Gino's links in the show notes in the bottom of the YouTube description here. So with that, it was a pleasure to have you. I really appreciate your time, and I'd love to have you back. Maybe exchange the above spirituality, but
Yeah.
we'll connect. We'll connect again.
Much love, Miss Mancuso. If anyone wants to reach out to me particularly about above spirituality, because we are looking for guests, or even just the School of Metaphysics, feel free to go through whatever links you put. Above spirituality, Instagram is the best.
Amazing. All right, everybody. Have a good rest of your day.
Peace.
Bye.